So I made this video and posted it on the CreateStudio Facebook page, and some people were asking how to animate the lines, and then I got some messages on how to create it. So first let's look at this. So that was the video, and I'm going to give a shot at showing you how to do it. It really isn't that hard, but it took a lot of different timings and different sizing. And as you can see, here's everything that I have, and you can see that I'm not the neatest person, so I don't have any groups. I think I could go back in and make some groups, but when I was done, I was done. So this is what it looked like on my timeline. So of course, I'm not going to do all of that. I'm going to show you with maybe one or two lines, and then that will just show you how you can move forward. The key is really in the camera, because if you look, this is what it looks like to be able to fit them all in. But when it's playing, it is zoomed in. So I have the camera slowly zooming out. I think when the music's playing, my voice will compete. But this is all in the camera action, so I'll also show you that. So let's just go look at how to make some of the components of what we're doing. I did make a copy already of Grandpa and the line, but let me show you how I made the character in the box. All I did was I got a square, I sized it down to whatever size I wanted. That's a little smaller than it was, but you get the idea. You're going to size it. To round the corners, select it. I'll do it from here on the bottom. You see it has four. Let me just move this down so that that doesn't get in the way of what we're doing. Let me go back. I'm sorry. Let me lock the background because it's going to keep selecting it, and I don't want to do that. So if I get my square, I don't quite know what happened here. Let's see. All right, let's try that again. Sorry, see, I told you sometimes it's going to take a little time. So I'm going to scale this down. I'm going to make it whatever size I want it to be. And now back to what I was showing you. You see these four circles in the corner. You're just going to click and drag a little, and you can see, look at the top one here, and you'll see it moving. You can change what it looks like, and I'm just going to give it a little subtle rounded edge on the edge of it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to make it white. Then what I did for my characters is I just went in and I grabbed, I'll just grab the first character I see. I am going to reduce the size. And because I'm zoomed in, he's way down at the bottom, so I'm using my shift and arrow key just to bring him up. And then I have all of the characters in them were doing idle, so I am going to make this idle, just because then there's not a lot of movement. Then what I did is I took the first square and the robot. Let me do that again because you can't see what I'm doing. I'm clicking on the square, holding my shift key, clicking on the robot, so they're both selected, right-clicking, mask. So now he's cut, so you're not seeing the bottom and he's not hanging out. Then I just selected both, right-click. Sorry, we don't have to right-click on that. Select both, and then I just did Command G to group it. So now it can move together. And that's all I did for the characters. So I'm going to leave it with Grandpa. And once you have one of those, all I did, here I'm going to press my space key and just click and move it over. As you can see, when I press my space key, the hand is going to get selected. That's just your shortcut that you can move around. Once I had the character done, all I did was select it, and then I did Command D. You can also hit duplicate there. I just do the Command D. Then I moved it up a little bit. I click and I should just start over because I'm making so many mistakes here. The problem was I hadn't selected the right one. And I'm just going to move him over and make sure you can see with that purple line. See the purple line? It is centered. If I moved it up, you now can see you have side and top and bottom boundaries, but I want it to be centered. Now all I did is I double clicked to open the group, or you can open the group here. I often double click. Then I just looked here and first thing I actually did is I unmasked, moved the mask out of the way a little bit. Then I went to my studio and I grabbed my next character. I just want to grab one that's already done. Put it on my timeline, click idle. Then I just clicked and dragged right here, those two little bars to expand it. I selected Grandpa and got rid of him by deleting. I selected my new character, just increased to whatever size I wanted. And then I selected the mask that I had and the character. And now she is in the box. Every time I made a new character box, that's all I did. I just kept copying, pasting. Oh, there's our little robot in there. All right. So I am now going to two-finger scroll on my mouse to zoom in. And I am so here we have John come up. And here all I did was use a scale up and fade. So we just had a little bit of a scale up with the zoom and fade in. Then I had a text box with the name at the same time that I had the line, and I will show you how I did that. And now as it goes, she zooms up. She might be able to zoom up a little bit later, but you can play with those timings. I really did it all based on the music that I had done. And then I would just copy, duplicate the name. I'm going to do Command D. I just click and drag it above where I can click on here and change that name to girl so that I can keep track of that. I can take the John that I duplicated and move it, and we can just name her whatever. And then I can do the same thing about centering underneath the box. So here we have the two characters. Now we're not zoomed in because I didn't set the camera already, but we will do that after. So that's how you do the characters. Then you'll just duplicate, move it down. So if I duplicate this and then I move it down, I can have it down here. I can move it wherever I want it to go. So then she can be down here for one of the kids. I'm going to delete that. All right, so here we are full scale. Now we need to make the line going down. I'm going to zoom back in again. And the reason being is if I try to select this, I'm not going to be able to move this because if you can see those arrows, it's always going to change. If I click and drag, it's going to change the size of it. And I don't want to do that. You're going to have to zoom in really close to be able to then move it. Here, as you notice the purple line, if I let go of my mouse, it will disappear. But if I have this purple line, I know that it's centered in the two boxes. So what I also did to make it super easy on myself is I would just keep duplicating the line. I'm going to do Command D. I got a new line. I'm going to rename this one down. I'm going to move it over. Then I just flipped it. How did I do that? I just took, you can see the little circle. If I go like this, it's an arrow. If I do this, you can see the circle. I can just flip it down. And then, here's my one down. I'm going to move my keyframes just for while we're working on it, but I'll move it back to the beginning after. At the start, let me show you these grid lines. If I click right here, I can make grid lines. I'm going to make a vertical grid line. I can click and move it if I want, but I don't actually want to do that. That's the middle. That's the middle of the line. So what I'm going to do is click on my first keyframe. Then I'm going to do my shift and right arrow. And then I'm just going to move it over a little so that it's in the middle of my white line. And then I'm going to go to my end keyframe and do the same thing. Now, if you're a real video person, I'm just going to move this. You can also go here to your properties and position your X and your Y. I am not a real video person. I get really confused with those. So I just do it this way. It's quicker and easier for me. But if you actually do video, you will probably prefer to use those in the properties where you have your placement. All right. I also made this longer. So I'm going to zoom in. So I'm going to delete that line so it doesn't get confusing. I'm going to grab this and bring it down, just so it becomes longer. So let's look at what we did. Let me close that. Goes across. She comes up. The name has to be done. Now, it's not animating down. And I'm actually not too sure why it isn't, because it should have copied the animation. So let me show you right here. If I click on the animation of the across line, what I did is position and scale. and I used linear. Here, it has linear, position, and scale. So what I need to do, I must have messed up the timing somehow. The first keyframe, I need to click and drag it all the way up to 0. And now it will animate down. Now what I also want to show you, because we're going to make a line together, but I first wanted to show you how this can all go together. So now you have it all timed that we have the first character, the second character, and then it draws down. I would time that a little bit earlier. And then you're going to make a line go across. So let's make that line without duplicating. Here is where the line finishes drawing. I'm going to scroll in. The way I made the lines is I went up and I grabbed a square. I'm going to make it smaller. You're going to size these better. I'm not going to take the time to do that right now just because that's really what took me the longest. Then I'm going to make it thinner by grabbing that. I'm going to change the color to white. And as you can see, it's thicker than the original one. And that's why I always copied and pasted, because it just made it easier for me. I'm going to use my arrow key to make sure that's centered on the line. So now this is going to be, rename it to across. That's just how I named them, so the order and whether they were going down or across. So here we have this, and now you can see this just appears, and we don't want that to happen. So we need to animate that line. I'm going to select it, add an animation, position and scale, easing, linear. I'm going to draw it out, and I'll be able to change it. I am clicking in the middle and moving it because it's easier to grab the keyframe than I move it when I'm done. Here's where I want it to be. At the end, it's going to be full. And at the start, it's going to be down to 0. Now I'm going to click and bring the keyframe to the start. And let's see how that looks. It's a little long. We don't need it to take that long. So let's look. Now the thing about here, you can change. I'm going to scroll in so you can see it better. You can go in and change the anchor point. Right now it's in the middle, and that is what I want so that it draws out from the middle. But if we look at this one, you'll see the anchor point is on the left side so that it draws from Grandpa and then moves. And the same with this down one. The anchor point is right up here at the top. You can see the little purple mark right there. So you can change how it's going to be drawn. And now it's drawing across. And then I just did the same thing. Again, I just selected and duplicated it, turned it, and then I would move it. Of course, this is going to have to be shorter. So first let me, see, I already ruined it. Resizing it. But let me This is where it gets the tricky part because see, I can't really drag it and move it because I can't catch it. So I'm gonna make it bigger just so that we can be faster here. These lines were going down to the next row of family. So I'm going to zoom in again. These might not be the perfect size, which is why I duplicated them, because that was the only way I could make sure that they looked the same. You got to make sure you get the hand. So I'm going to have to do the same thing. This is going to be 2 down. And I'm going to want it to start over here. So I'm going to use my shift and arrow key. And there we go. I didn't move it enough. Sorry. This is where the experts are going to be using those values. I just can't do it very well. I'm going to click on my arrow key and bring it back. So here I need to move it just a little bit more. There we go. And here we have it animating out. And then I made multiple lines going down. So you're going to make however many you need for this family, you would make all of those lines going down. Then I would just select Command D, move down, make sure it's matching up to the line, double click in, change my character like I showed you at the beginning. So really that's all it is, and it was the tedious part of just making all of the different lines going the way you want them to go. Now, what I did for my camera is I double clicked, and I had a pretty long camera frame. I had to keep retiming it with the music and the characters I had, but at the beginning you can see the 4 corners, so it's full canvas. I'm going to click and drag that up so it is just these 2 characters. You can see the purple line, it's centered. I'm going to click on the easing and make it linear. And now you'll see that it's going to be zoomed in, so you're not seeing the full canvas. And then as it draws, it's going to be zooming out. I would still make this longer because it's rushing ahead of the drawing, but that just took some timings that you would want to do and see when you want them to go fast or slow. And that's all that I don't have the rest of it made, so now it's continuing to go out. Very quickly, I also can show you these right here are SVGs. So I just went in here and I just put in leaf. You're going to get a whole bunch. You can just click here to import it into your media folder. And all I did was I brought it in, resized it. I went to the color. I used my color picker so it would be the same color as the background. Then I clicked on shadow and just made a little bit of a shadow. And then you can put it wherever you want. I had some in the backgrounds, but I will make it smaller and put it right over here just to see how that will look. I'm going to expand it. And let's play it. I'd have to do some more shadowing. That's not showing as much, but you can always add more shadow to it so it stands out more. However you want to do it. If you want to do it, you don't have to do it. But that's just one other thing that I just added to the background so it would have some dimension in the background. So I realize this tutorial is absolutely showing I am in no way a video animator, and I make things a little bit more challenging than perhaps they have to be. But for me, using the lines that I already drew just made it easier for me, and rotating them so I didn't have to continue to resize them. So this is the final product, and I had it timed to the music, but I wanted to turn that off. So I hope this helped in some way, and I hope it wasn't too long or too confusing, because I'm actually happy it didn't take me as long as I thought it might, because I had to do a lot of timings and sizing. And as you can see, I have 3 different camera. I had that zooming out a little, and I didn't want it to keep going, so then I put another one in, and then a third one in, so it could go slow enough to show everything developing. All right, I hope this helps. Have fun.